The pencil, by itself and in its own essence, is nothing more than wood and lead. But if we think about a pencil, it's so much more than that. It's used to tell stories. It's used to draw pictures. It's used to write poetry. Which leads me to this. Do you believe that you are more than who you are now? Do you believe that you have a great purpose and plan for this life? The question is, will you choose to be used?
Well, guys, I'm sad to say it, but this is our last week together for Best Choice Ever. That was good, but I want you to sell it a little bit more on the other side of the screens there. I want you to sell it a little bit more. This is our last week of Best Choice Ever. I know. Worst choice, I know. But tonight, we're going to be talking about something so awesome. We're going to be talking about choosing to be used. Choose to be used by God. I think if you guys could jump in a time machine and fast forward your life to where you're old and you're gray, you would want to look back on your life and look back on all the things that have happened and think, man, I lived a good life. I made a difference in this world. I made an impact in people's lives. I was used in great and incredible ways. And when we look back in our lives, we just go, man, I got used in some incredible ways. And so you guys are still so young, and you have your whole lives ahead of you, and you can do whatever you want with your lives. You can be used however you want to choose to be used in your life. But I want to give you guys some warnings. There's a couple ways as you start to think about your future and how you could be used. There's a couple ways, a couple things that you might want to avoid doing in your life in a segment, and I'm gonna teach you these in a segment that I like to call Worst Job Ever. All right, so here's how this is gonna work. We're gonna have a little fun here. Worst job ever. I'm gonna read off a title of a couple different jobs. And what I want you to do is turn to the person next to you or shout it out. I want you to tell me what you think that job is. So I'm going to give you the title of the job, and you're going to say what it is. Okay, you ready? You ready? Here's the first job that you might not want to do with your lives. First job is an odor tester. Turn to somebody next to you or shout out, what do you think an odor tester does? I'm hearing some really good answers. I'm hearing some really good ones. All right. An odor tester is somebody who sniffs armpits for a living. They smell deodorant in armpits to make sure that the scent is right on and that it's working properly. All right? Okay, here's the next one. Maybe something you might not want to be. All right, this one, warning, gets a little graphic. This one's called a brain picker. A brain picker. Turn to somebody next to you really quick. Share what you think that person does. I'm hearing some really, really, really interesting ones. All right. You getting it on the other side of the screen there? Okay, all right. So here we go. The brain picker is someone who places animal heads on a table or a hook at a slaughterhouse and splits open the skull and extracts the brains that gets used in meals in other countries where the brain is a delicacy. Could you imagine coming home? Being like, oh, I just have a splitting headache right now, you know? So that's a brain picker. All right, the next one, I'm going to warn you about this one. I'm going to warn you. Don't let your minds go to bad places here. But this next one is called, I'm going to get letters, I know it, chicken sexing. Chicken sexing. Turn to the person next to you and describe what watch your mouths. All right? No, this is not like sending inappropriate text messages to chickens. Like, that's not what it is. All right, good answers. Here's what chicken sexing is. It's somebody who takes chickens, determines the sex of them, and then splits them up according to their sex. Got that? How many of you guys got that one right? How many of you, your minds went totally in the wrong place? All right, yeah, that's what I thought. All right, last one. Body advertiser. Body advertiser. Turn to somebody next to you, shout it out. What do you think a body advertiser does? All right. Here's what a body advertiser does. The body advertiser is somebody who gets paid to get tattoos on their bodies for companies or corporations. Slogans and stuff like that. Like, what you don't want is like get a lower back tattoo with Taco Bell that says like I'm thinking outside the bun, or something like that. I'm totally gonna get letters tonight. From parents. Here's the thing. The great thing about America and living where you live is you can choose to be whatever you want. Probably not those things, right? But you can choose whatever you want to do with your life. You can be used in whatever ways you want to be used in. And for me, that's good news because I'm a control freak. Any other control freaks out there? I am a control freak. And I was raised believing that if you just work hard enough at something, if you just go after it with all you have and all that you are, you can make things happen, right? But I also learned at a very early age that this is not entirely true. Do you want to know how I realized that? A girl. See, I was in junior high. And there was this girl named Erin Smith, and when she would walk down the halls, she would just like always walk in slow motion, and her hair would kind of flow, and like the angelic beings around her would just sing in harmony, and she was just the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen at 12 years old. And then there's me. I had baggy pants, and I had hair down past my shoulders, and it was shaved underneath, so it looked like I was wearing a mop. And I was one of the first middle school students, junior hires, to be able to grow facial hair. So I had this dirty mustache that looked like I rubbed it in mud. And so here I am. I walk up to Erin, and I'm like, hey, I was just wondering, would you like want to go out with me sometime? And she's like, oh, I'm just really busy right now. It's not a good time. And I was like, bang, rejected, right? But I always learned, go after it, take control. So I decided, okay, after all the tests are over, I'll ask her out again, right? Some of the girls right here are like, bad idea. You shouldn't have. Should have stopped at one. So I go up to her again and I say, hey, I was just wondering, would you like want to go out with me sometime? And she's like, now's just not a good time. I'm just not ready. Boom. Rejected a second time. You would think I'd learned my lesson, right? No. Take control of your life. Do what you want with your life. Make it happen. So I walk up to her, third time later on in the year, and I'm like, hey, Erin, would you like want to go out sometime? And she looks at me, she goes, Nick, I just don't like you like that. Boom, rejected, I know, it's so... But isn't it frustrating when we try and take control of our lives and it doesn't work out the way we want it to? Isn't that just so frustrating? Maybe for some of you guys, you've been practicing so hard at that sport. You've been working so hard at it, or reading your lines in that play, and then you show up at tryouts or auditions, and you don't make the team. Or maybe you ask that guy or that girl out, and you get rejected. And when we try and get control of our lives, it doesn't quite work out the way we want. These messages stick deep inside us, saying that we're not good enough, that we don't measure up. So we just try and be in control of our own lives. But here's the reality, you guys. If you call yourself a Christian, then your life is not your own. Life is not meant to be having you in control of it. If you call yourself a Christian, your life is to let God be in control and let God choose your destination and choose how he wants to use you. Your job is to give that over to him and let him be in control of that. If you call yourself a Christian, your life is not your own. I remember one time when letting go of control literally saved my life one day. When I was a sophomore in high school, I was on the wrestling team, and we would go to Colorado every year and go whitewater rafting. And so we're getting ready to go whitewater rafting, and our instructor was like, all right, guys, I need to tell you something very important. If you find yourself in the river at any point during the rapids time, when you're going down the rapids, Do not swim. You have a life vest on. The rapids are just going to take you. You need to let the rapids just spit you out, and you'll be fine. Do not try and swim because you're going to turn yourself upside down. You're going to get confused, and you will drown. Okay, good to know, good to know. Well, guess what happened to me? So here we are. We're coming up to these rapids, and on the one side of the rapids is this little churning water, and the tour guide goes, if we go to that side of the rapid, it's like the easy part. If you go to that side of the rapid, it gets a little bit harder. But where those two rapids come together, that's called gutting the river. That's where like all the frothy, foamy water was coming up, spraying everywhere. And he was like, so do you guys want to go there, or gut it in the middle? Middle, duh, come on. Like, we're gonna gut this water, right? So we start just going straight into this rapids. And at one point, we just hit this big wave, and the boat turned like 90 degrees. And the guy who was next to me in the boat was no longer next to me, but he was up here. And right as I noticed that he wasn't over here, but up here, he came falling down right into me. And I found myself in the water. And as I was in the water, I started to feel like rocks scraping my face, and I realized I was at the bottom of the river here. And so initially I started like doing like the doggy paddle, like that's gonna get me out of it. But then I remember what the tour guide said. Let go of control. Let the river be in control. So I just kind of went from this paddling to just relaxing. And in that moment, it was incredibly scary. And I thought I was gonna die. But what seemed like forever, all of a sudden, I come shooting out of the water. And as I look back, those rapids are all the way in the background, and I had made it. I'd survived. It's all, though, because I chose to let go and give over control to something bigger and something more powerful than me. There's no way that my swimming and me being in control was going to win against that current. And some of you, that's what you're doing. You keep trying to swim in your life. You keep trying to stay in control of your own life, and it's this false illusion that you are in control, but the reality is you're not. Some of you need to learn to let go of control and let God be in control of your life. Because some of you are drowning. Some of you are swimming so hard and filling your lives with so many things, but you know that you're just drowning. But we love to hold on to our stuff, don't we? We love to be in control. It's like, all right, God, you can have school and you can have my family life, but like my relationships, I'm hanging on to this. My sports, I'm hanging on to this. You can have that, but I'm going to take this. I'm going to hang on to this. We love being in control. But here's what happens when we're in control. There's a story in the Bible of this guy that we know him as the rich young ruler. And he approaches Jesus, and he says, Jesus, I have obeyed all your commands. I've kept every single commandment you've ever told me. What else do I need to do to get eternal life? What do I need to do to go to heaven? And this is Jesus' reply to this guy. He said, if you want to be perfect, go sell your possessions and give to the poor, and you will have treasures in heaven. Then come, follow me. And this was his response. When the young man heard this, he went away sad because he had great wealth. What's so interesting about this verse, there's a couple things. What did he do? What was his response? He went away sad, right? See, this guy was holding on to his riches. He was holding on to all the things that he had. And Jesus is telling him to follow him. What's so interesting about this passage of Scripture, Jesus typically had 4 responses in the Bible. He would say, he would heal somebody and would say, go and leave your life of sin. Or he would heal somebody and say, go and tell nobody. Or he'd heal them and he'd say, go and tell everybody what I've done. But then, there were a few times where Jesus said, come, follow me. Do you know when he said that? He said that when he was asking somebody to be his disciple. What's happening here is Jesus is asking this guy to be his disciple. Does any Bible scholars out there know what his name was? Anybody? We don't know. We don't find out what his name is, but this guy's name could have been Hank, and Hank could have been one of Jesus' disciples, and we could have read about Hank throughout the Bible, doing awesome things with his life, seeing Jesus' miracles, but he chose to say no to being used by God. He chose to hang on to his comfortable life and stay in charge of his own life. He missed out on the opportunities that God had in store for his life and went back to what he was comfortable with. But then there's this other guy in the Bible. His name's Moses. How many of you have heard of the burning bush? Moses in the burning bush. So Moses approaches this burning bush and he goes up to God. God is in the fire. He's in this burning bush and this bush doesn't burn up. And God says, Moses, I'm going to use you to save millions of people from slavery. And Moses' response, he was like, God, don't send me, not me. I'm not good enough. I don't have what it takes to go talk to the Pharaoh and let these, free these people. I'm not good enough, God. And God's like, Moses, I will be with you. I will be for you. I will do the work in and through you. And this interaction goes back and forth time and time again. And finally, Moses gives in, and he gives over his life to God. And he says, all right, God, I will go. You can use me. And so we read the rest of this story that God uses Moses to free millions and millions of people out of Egypt to a promised land that God had in store for them. And then we know this story, a lot of us know the story. He walks up to this sea where he's at the base of the sea, he's at the shore of the sea, and he raises up his staff and the water parts, right? And then he frees millions and millions of people through these waters. You see, God did a miracle through Moses because Moses said yes to go and be used by God. If he would have said no, he would have missed that opportunity. He never would have saw that blessing in God's life. But he chose to be used by God. Now, here's the thing. If you choose to say no to God, God's not going to be like, oh, wait, what? No? I wasn't expecting you to say no. Like, what am I going to do now? Because here's the thing. God doesn't need us. God chooses us. He chooses us to be a part of the adventure that he has in store for our lives. When he calls you to be used for certain purposes, we get to see God's blessing. We get to see God's miracles happening through our lives. We get to see God work through us, and we get to see our lives go on this adventure that we never thought we were capable of doing because we're not, because it's God working in us and through us to do great things. We get to be a part of what God has in store. So some of you here today feel like you're not good enough. You're not sure how God could use someone like you. But here's the thing. He can and he will. Maybe for some of you out there, maybe it's stepping up tonight and being a Swerve student and leading in Switch and bringing people in who need God, who need love, who need hope in their lives. You could be the one to lead them here and be a part of this place. For some of you, you can put your reputation on the line. You know there's that kid at school who nobody else really likes, who everybody else makes fun of, and you can come around him or her and be friends with them and show them love. Maybe some of you, you know that you need to be used in your family. Your family life is torn apart. There's a lot of struggles and frustrations in your family, but if you call yourself a Christian and saying, I will be used by God, maybe your job is to go into your family and show them God's love. For some of you, it's starting a small group at school. For others of you who are going to be graduating soon and going to college, maybe for you, it's going, I'm going to choose to not go into this party scene that college has in store and not fall into all those things, but I'm going to stay a Christian and do what's right and show people that there's a different way to live, a better way to live, a way that's more fulfilling in our lives than those things, and you can be used on your college campuses. There's a story of this little boy in the Bible. And he's walking and he has 5 pieces of bread and 2 fish. And Jesus and his disciples approach him and they say, hey, can we have your bread and your fish? And I can imagine this boy standing there being like, mine? I don't have a lot. But we read in this story that he gives over his 5 pieces of bread and 2 fish. And we read that Jesus fed 5,000 people with it. Isn't that amazing? He could have been like, I don't have enough to give you, God. Or he could have been like, no, I really need this. I need to hang on to this. My family needs this. But he chose to give over the little that he had, and God multiplied it and fed 5,000 people and did something way beyond what he could have ever imagined with his life. That was his thing. It's a great story. So let me ask you, what are you holding on to in your life? What things are you holding control in your life that you know you need to let go of and let God be in control of? What little bit do you have in your life that you can give over to God? God, I don't have much. I'm not worthy. I'm not good enough, but I give you me and use me in whatever ways you want to. What is that for you? What's that thing for you? As you think about that, I want all of you guys right now. I want you to close your eyes. Close your eyes right now. Bow your heads. For some of you, you realize you're like, I'm a Christian, but I've been holding on to a lot of stuff. I've been holding on to a lot of things. I've been in control of my life. Yes, I believe in God, but I've been holding on. I haven't let God use what I have. I haven't let God use me in my schools or with my family or with my friends, but I am a Christian and I want to be used. If you're here tonight and you're saying yes to choosing to be used by God, you want to just offer whatever you have to him, the little bit, to let God do a great thing in and through your lives and in the lives of others, I want you to raise your hand right now. If you're going to choose to be used by God tonight, hands going up all over the place. On every campus, raise your hand. Let me just pray for you guys right there. God, I pray for those students that are making a choice tonight to be used by you for your glory. God, to be used in great ways. I pray that these students who said yes to choosing to be used by you would be world changers. I pray that because they said yes tonight, that you would use them in amazing ways, that they will have this ripple effect in this world because they said yes to being used by you. I pray that these students would see your love and see what you have in store for their lives in so many different ways. I pray as they say yes, God, I pray some of them don't know what they're supposed to do yet, but I pray that as they leave here tonight, you would just reveal that to them. So we just give you these students who said yes and are choosing to be used by you. We just give you them. With your eyes still closed and your head still bowed, there are some of you here. You have realized that you've been in control this whole time. You have been in control of everything. You have been living your life your own way. You didn't quite realize that there was maybe a God who had great things in store for you. Some of you out there are thinking that I've just never been good enough. I'm not good enough for God to love me. I'm not good enough to be used by a big God who's creator of the universe. But if you realize tonight in your heart, you sense something just nudging at your heart that God is saying, yes, I love you. I'm choosing you. I want to use you in amazing ways. If there are those of you who have never given your life over to God before, and you're feeling that nudge in your heart to accept that Jesus died on the cross for your sins so that God can live in you and through you and do amazing things in your life, if you want that for the first time in your life tonight, I want you to raise your hands right now. Go ahead and raise them up. At all the campuses, raise your hands right now.